Please proceed with caution. This is the only content warning in the video, and the topics covered range from the bizarre to the downright evil. American Horror Story, an FX and FX on Hulu anthology show created by Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk, premiered in 2011. The co-creators began work on AHS before Glee even started, and stated they both had an interest in the horror genre. Since its inception, the show has taken viewers to various locations and time periods to explore fear, the bizarre, and the grotesque, both visually and conceptually. The 11-and-a-half-season show has won awards, garnered respect and acclaim alike since then. This video and the following two parts will go over each season briefly, including a review after recently rewatching them. Rather than start with the best, I'm jumping in with Season 6 and going over each season through 11. From this point on, the video will contain spoilers for Season 6 Roanoke, 7 Cult, 8 Apocalypse, 9 1984, 10 Double Feature, and 11 NYC. The sixth season premiered in 2016 and maintains a 57% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes of over 100,000 reviews. Following the media coverage of Hotel's glitz, glamour, and star-studded appeal, FX and the creators warned of a completely different direction, not even confirming an official cast list or theme. Even the location gave no hints, as it is the first and only time an entire set was built from scratch just for the season. After dropping multiple teaser trailers that all hinted at wildly different themes, teasing that only one would be the actual theme, fans went into a frenzy on social media apps like Tumblr and Twitter to dissect and theorize. Fortunately for fans and FX alike, TMZ leaked photos from the set that included features that made the new season's theme very obvious.
It was something from a nightmare.
Like the word Croatoan carved into a tree and time period specific items. Suspicions quickly got confirmed, with the season focusing on the colony, but more specifically the house built atop the land which the colony had been suspected of disappearing from. Now haunted by ghosts from multiple generations who died at the hands of both the Butcher and her ghost colony, the house's history is revealed throughout key plot points during the season. Some key points in that timeline are 1500s to 1585, the Roanoke colony led by John White settles in North Carolina. The Butcher kills everyone and binds the ghost to the land during the blood moon. In 1972, Edward Philippe Moss purchases the remote land and builds a home on top of it. In 2014, Shelby and Matt, who we opened the season with, purchase the home and believe the worst thing about it is the potentially racist Polk family of hillbillies nearby. The first part of the show we're following is a reality-based TV show about a couple who moved to the house after a violent attack in LA, only to discover the house is haunted. We also meet Lee, Matt's sister, and her daughter Flora, who stays a time. Actors who later become characters as themselves, Audrey, Monet, Agnes, Dominic, and Rory, portray the family story and how they barely escaped from the land in a reality show called My Roanoke Nightmare. This transition into the present day following the producer's efforts to get all of the actors and the real characters back to the house to film a season 2 after the first success. Most of the season follows the real events as they unfold through cameras set up in the house by the show's crew and handheld cameras given to the cast. Other video footage is also included to provide additional context like news coverage, trial footage, and even season 2 character Lana Winter's TV interview of Lee. Despite its experimental shortcomings, the core story isn't bad, and Adina Porter gives her all to her portrayal of Lee. Taking a completely different turn from the middle-of-nowhere haunted 18th century home, experimental nesting doll format, we step into the real world, almost literally, to the first and only season without supernatural elements. Cult is the 7th installment of AHS, premiering in September 2017, opting for a spin on the outcome of the 2016 U.S. presidential election, where Donald Trump lost the popular vote but won the Electoral College vote and thus presidency. With an audience rating of 52% on Rotten Tomatoes, it could be considered a season with mixed reviews. The plot follows the events directly after the election in a fictional small town called Brooksfield, Michigan. Most of the episodes take place in the characters' home and main town areas like the opening couple's restaurant on Main Street. We start by following Allie and Ivy Mayfair Richards, a politically involved lesbian couple with a young son named Oz. From the night of the election, their personal worlds plunge into chaos along with their town, as a mysterious group of clowns begin terrorizing the residents. Parallel to their story, we follow Kai and Winter Anderson on election night, a brother who wanted Trump to win and a sister who put her education on hold to campaign for Hillary Clinton. Fear's Truth is the name of the clown cult that the main characters are a part of, led by Kai. This cult's goal and purpose is to make everyone afraid and to use that fear for political gain. Donning clown masks and costumes, the group, Triple Dick, Ball Gag, Pentagram, Puzzle Face, Bowles, Cooks, Brainiac, and Elephant Woman commit gruesome and symbolic murders, leaving a bloody clown smiley face at each scene with the goal of capturing media attention. From the promotion campaign to the finale, the season fulfills the promise of its title and theme, cults. We see how Kai, Winter, and Beverly take advantage of people's fears in order to manipulate them and attempt to control them. The eventual outcomes of the attempts to control end as many other cults tend to, by imploding. Kai even explains the demise of real-world cults like the Manson family, Heaven's Gate, and David Koresh, which are definitely not the kind of cults you want your cult leader to reference in relation to you. Ultimately, the season is really on the nose, clown pun intended, but accomplishes one of my favorite things about horror, holding a mirror up to society and showing us our fears. Murdering clown cults, extreme manipulation, and conspiracy theories reveal themselves slowly with red herring distractions that allow them to fly even more so in the radar. The paranoia is well built in the beginning of the season, even making you as a watcher paranoid characters are lying to you. Apocalypse is an extremely intelligent way to magnetize viewers back to the franchise and give the people what they've been asking for. Bring back the faves, and if possible, the queen herself, Jessica Lange. In September 2018, the 8th installment premiered and is still widely regarded as a considerable improvement in comparison to Roanoke and Cult, boasting an audience score of 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, close to Coven's audience score of 76% on the same site. Season 8 also marks the return of an original showrunner from seasons 1 through 4, Jessica Lange, who reprises her role of Constance Langdon from Murder House. The first episode hits the ground running with an apocalypse as guaranteed. Nuclear Armageddon takes over the planet, and only the uber-wealthy and the genetically matched live in underground bunkers called outposts. Murder House in Los Angeles, Miss Robichaux's in New Orleans, and various personal hells are all settings during the season. Cody Fern joins AHS for the first time as Michael Langdon, the Antichrist who is the driving force behind the apocalypse. We get 2 performances from Sarah Paulson and a directorial debut on episode 6. We're introduced to male academics for magic that build upon the universe from Coven. We're also given endings and continuations on stories from season 1 and 3 regarding characters like the Langdon and Harmon families trapped in Murder House and the witches from Coven, both burned at the stake and still alive. Madison Montgomery, one of my personal favorite characters of the franchise, also makes a comeback and redeems herself. Aside from Asylum being stunning, I can't think of other seasons that compete with these aside from possibly Apocalypse and one other later season installment. As promised, the 8th season captured the essence and vibe of the earlier seasons like Coven and Asylum extremely well. The ending does need to be addressed, however. It undoes the entire series of events. Essentially, nothing that happened during the season with Outpost 3 and Miss Mead and the Satanists and the Coven saving the world just didn't happen. In order to save the world, Mallory, the Billy Lord played badass, has to go back in time and take Michael out when he's still weak enough to do so. Unfortunately for those of us who felt satisfied with the tied-up ends to staple stories, none of it mattered anyways. The season is a non-season season, and I often think of it as a side quest for my favorite characters rather than a whole standalone installment to the franchise. The 9th season got approved at the same time as the 8th, and it's been said to be influenced by slasher horror films of the 80s, which makes sense with the title, of course. Originally meant to be 10 episodes, this is the shortest season of AHS, coming in at 9 episodes. Right alongside season 8, this season has a 76% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes and is critically acclaimed. Emma Roberts returned, but some of the go-to actors from previous seasons like Peters and Paulson sat the season out. The season is a great homage to 80s slasher horror, from the promo campaigns to the set and costume style to the writing to the acting. It's just plain good. The setting is Camp Redwood, a place that has seen a weirdly high number of murders and massacres on the property. Surrounding a lake set back in the California woods, the camp is stereotypical in the best ways, with a wooden dock and creaky cabin doors. Starting with a very trope-heavy OG killer, Mr. Jingles, we waste no time setting up the legend of this mass killer who collects ears and kills cabins full of campers in the 70s. The majority of the season takes place in the 80s and follows a group of young adults living in LA, all pursuing their dreams and taking an aerobics class. The group leader, Xavier, invites everyone to spend the summer getting out of the city and being camp counselors at the reopening Camp Redwood. All of the characters have their own reasons for getting out, including running from the Night Stalker and hiding from a potential homicide investigation. Later, it's revealed that Margaret, the camp's director who intends to reopen the camp, is a victim of the original Mr. Jingles massacre, and then we also find out she's the real Mr. Jingles. Benjamin Richter, a man who is framed as Mr. Jingles and locked away in a mental hospital, ends up becoming a real serial killer when Donna Chambers, a psychiatrist who infiltrates the group, encourages him to do his Mr. Jingles thing so she can observe him in action for her research. Some of the other serial killers featured are the Lady in White, revealed to be Richter's mom, who killed counselors at the same camp back in the 40s. As previously mentioned, the promotion campaign portrayed the style of the 80s Promotions and movie posters. This play into tropes is the theme of the season, and that's very clear when looking for character tropes. Ray is the token black guy, Chet is a dumb, horny jock, Montana is a selfish baddie who is considered the bad girl, and the opposite to the good girl or final girl in Brooke, and later Jonna. We have the hot couple and a woman who is portrayed as absolutely hysterical. Though the story sets up with the basic tropes, once we get through the events that would probably correspond with the first movie in a slasher film franchise, the characters have evolved. None of the characters are one-dimensional, and similarly to in franchises, we get different sides and performances from them when faced with different circumstances and different serial killers with different motives. Similarly to Murder House, this land traps and tethers souls to it, believed to be because of the string of horrific events taking place on the same property. If someone dies on the property, they are stuck there forever, which is both beautiful and awful depending on which ghost you ask. Double Feature, on the other hand, is not my personal favorite. It is the second lowest rated season by Rotten Tomatoes audience score of 51%. The first part is perfectly fine with fairly typical critiques and reviews, but that second part is something else entirely. Split into two parts, the name and theme are a play on the days when movie theaters offer two showings for the price of one ticket, often horror films. This review will be divided into two sections covering episodes 1 through 6 first, all part of the story Red Tide. Both parts focus heavily on their locations. Part 1 taking place in present-day Provincetown, Massachusetts, an eastern coastal town that shuts down in the winter. The cold, haunting environment that is sparsely populated met the needs of filming this season in light of the 2020 shutdowns and restrictions. The beach-weathered town is a naturally eerie setting. Wide shots used throughout the episode capture the essence perfectly. The house and neighborhood that the Gardeners move into is part of a small community of locals that all seem to know something is afoot, lighting red lights at night and shuttering doors and windows. The local bar and a few other characters' houses serve as the places that action happens, bringing characters together and subtly informing with great attention to detail. Fans are treated to a surprising but good performance from Macaulay Culkin, who plays a male of the night alongside his dear friend tuberculosis Karen, played by Sarah Paulson. The family that is the focus of the story, the Gardeners, consists of pregnant mom Doris, struggling TV writer Harry, and aspiring violinist Alma, taking a break from New York City. We meet two artists who also stay in Provincetown to create each winter, Austin Summers, a playwright, and Belle Noir, a romance novelist. Both Belle and Austin recruit Harry to try a drug that supposedly opens up your abilities to create masterpieces, but only if you are naturally talented. The chemist, a former military scientist who now manufactures and studies the very drug the artists are on, the Muse, turns Provincetown upside down. Artists who are not talented become flesh phantoms, roaming the streets like twitchy zombies. I like that it becomes a drug organization focused on talent and creativity, and especially, as mentioned before, the attention to detail. Genuinely would have preferred a more drawn-out Part 1 with 8 to 10 episodes as opposed to Part 2, Death Valley. I actually get mad when I watch Death Valley, and prior to this rewatch I hadn't actually watched the entire thing due to being so confused and perturbed. Not scared or entertained, just perturbed. The setting is as basic as it gets, Area 51 and the Death Valley desert that it's located in, including a moon landing soundstage, LA of course, and the White House, all things associated with aliens. The story is really obvious. A group of attractive young adults goes camping and then they return all pregnant. They end up in Area 51 after going to the ER following a speed run through gestation. The care and creativity used with historical figures in other seasons goes out the window with President Dwight Eisenhower and his wife Mamie, who are revealed to be main characters this season. Having Neil McDonough should have been exciting, but instead it was bizarre solely due to the character and story. Death Valley is the most on the nose of all of the AHS seasons in a way that is not campy, fun, or good. It felt confusing and discombobulated from the start to finish when it's actually watchable. The actors do the best they can with the story, but the story itself is hollow and comes off like a high school horror story project and not AHS season part 2 with a second go at aliens as a theme. There's a weird Mamie Eisenhower affair that also made no sense. Just nothing about this. I hope to never watch this again, for any reason, unless I watch it at 2 times speed, and I'm glad it didn't completely kill the franchise. Premiering in 2022, Season 11, NYC, is the lowest rated season with 41% as an audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. The first episode in particular set the season off on the wrong foot, not playing into any of the expectations for AHS seasons. The pacing is completely off, and upon first watch, it's easy to forget you're watching. Season 11 comes off as 2 separate stories with totally different objectives edited together. As 2 standalone shows, they are both great, but mashed up as one season, it's not cohesive or consistent. The first episode and a half and the last 2 episodes are focused on the AIDS epidemic that began in 1981. This is mostly focused on the stark impacts to individuals' health as well as the emotional toll. It's a visually striking and emotionally horrifying tale that unfolds as the epidemic spreads, ominous warnings from tarot cards and characters to one another, peppered throughout to build tension. This part of the story is one of resiliency in the face of an inescapable reality, as the world turns their backs on the suffering. The setting is as promised by the theme New York City, and we find out from the start that we are in the 1980s again. As the epidemic begins, our characters are forced to question their realities and personal biases in the face of a growing threat. The story in the center of the season has tendrils reaching into the other episodes, but is more straight up AHS horror. This great story gets somewhat buried in a focus on the more emotional rather than horror. We get an extremely creepy but interesting serial killer named Whiteley, portrayed by Jeff Hiller, sparkle deer models, Fire Island parties, bondage gone wrong, and leather bars. There are two main antagonists of the season. They are the AIDS virus, represented by Big Daddy, and the Mai Tai killer, who we find out is Whiteley, Vietnam veteran who kills gay men around NYC using clubs as hunting grounds, then abducts and murders men in order to use their body parts to create what he calls the Sentinel. Big Daddy is never unmasked as a character or attributed to a specific character. He ominously stalks and haunts people that are infected with the virus, getting closer as they get closer to succumbing. He is a manifestation of the illness, and the illness claiming lives that is often used as a tool to foreshadow. At this point in the franchise, with a spin-off, the more high-level commentary of the story might have been better portrayed as a separate project, and the focus of AHS NYC better spent on the horror elements in the center of the season, so that both could shine as much as they could. As of recording this on the last day of January 2024, I'm watching American Horror Story seasons 1 through 5 and working on the next part, and will post on my other social media accounts as I watch. This review marathon, entailing this video, 1.5 other videos in the works, and an article on my website being updated as I watch, exists for no other reason than personally wanting to rewatch the show after randomly binge watching season 5 last month. So thank you for watching, and okay, bye.